Tommy Rock is a research professor at the Center for Ecosystem Science and Society at Northern Arizona University. His research takes a multidisciplinary approach to tackle complex issues, including sustainability in the Southwest from a Native American point of view. Tommy, thank you so much for taking the time today.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and thank you for reaching out to me.
So to start, can you tell the audience a little bit about your sustainability journey?
Okay, but let me introduce myself now for all the Native American that are out there from the for the indigenous population. Yeah, that tracing such a Tommy up and shadow lay or that total na shadow they which I get out and I just change. I just don't look at nan slant somebody change 20 that's a shadow look at nan that's not a and then she done they can Sunday shot. Hi, my name is Dr. Tommy Rock. What I just did is a formal introduction to myself, and that's how my grandparents told me. It's a formal way. And what I just did, I told about my four clan, who were a maternal clan system, and I told them what my clan is, like the Ute Salt clan, born for the Minigo clan, and my father or my mom's father is from the Bitterwater clan, and my father's father is from the Reed people clan, and then and I was raised in a place called Copper Canyon within the Ojibwe chapter, and I am a professor at in Flagstaff at NAU, and that's how I introduce myself in that role. Just so you know what I just said in my own language. And the journey started off really with my grandparents. Um, I grew up in Copper Canyon with my grandparents. We didn't have no running water or electricity, but that was just normal. And we were very um, conscious of the lack of availability of water. And the light that we used was like from gasoline or kerosene. And we used that for like um, doing stuff around at night or before sunset. That was my introduction to sustainability, really. And going to schools, like going from there, and making that transition to going to a boarding school, I was introduced to TV, running water, electricity, and and going um, through my education and being assimilated, really. I learned the different ways of addressing energy. It's like the way I was introduced was coal burning power plant. I had numerous uncles that were working in the coal mines, and I had my grandfather work in uranium mines as well. So I understood mining, a different form of mining, and how dangerous they were. And my grandfather, he passed away from cancer because he was a former uranium miner. Died of cancer going through my master's degree. And my uncles, they worked for the Peabody Coal Company, and they left their jobs. And they went about doing other things as well. So that was the introduction. One of my uncles did retire from the Peabody Coal Company, and he was an electrician for that company for 20 years or so. So that was my introduction to sustainability, energy source, and and my tribe, we have a lack of water infrastructure, public water, and that was brought to the national attention from COVID. There was a lady by the name of um, Emma from Dig Deep. I forgot her name at the moment, but she she brought that attention to the reality of the lack of water infrastructure on Navajo Nation when my tribe and other people were addressing the lack of water infrastructure. And as a researcher, we already knew about the lack of water infrastructure, and we talked a lot about that and issues related to the lack of water infrastructure and the lack of energy in certain areas, like the electricity grid as well. And during these meetings with community members, the community members will always address the lack of water infrastructure or the lack of electricity. There were coal burning power plants nearby. There was a hydrogen electric plant or hydrogen electric nearby as well. And you have all these electric grids going by, big electric grids. And here we are close to those two facilities, to power plant sources or energy sources. And you see a lot of people with no electricity, and you see a lot of people with no public water as well. And people that my community members and other tribal communities within Navajo, they will say is, what about us? Is that we're giving this to these guys, and what about us? Is that why are we sitting in the dark? We should have electricity. Why why don't we have running water? The water is just right there at the Colorado River. And it's still like that. I hear people talking about that, as well as like the lack of electric grid, the lack of public water, and some of the stuff that I work on with my community and other community members on Navajo and other um, colleagues of mine that's something that I work on as well, on separate from the academic side as well, because as a Navajo person, as an indigenous person, one of the reasons why I went to school and got my degrees is because I want to go and give back to community and help my community and empower my community as well, to like to solve problems. And some of the ways that I'm doing that is through some of the sustainability stuff that I'm doing, and within like a couple of nonprofit organizations that I'm involved with.
Yeah, well, I'd love to ask you about those initiatives. Could you talk about your Honor Water initiative and the CB initiative? I'm not sure if I said that right, but could you talk about the initiatives that you're working on?
Yes. Honor Water is a nonprofit organization. My friend and I, Dr. Jamie, Daisy Pretty, and I started, and it's about having the community members have access to water. And I work around a lot of these hand pump wells that are not working anymore. And they're just like very simple and easy fix. It's where the pipelines are broken, and I just put a new pipe and put in a bigger water tank. And and um, I go around and write small grants and get some money, and I work on these projects, buy the materials, hire local folks, and they will work with me on this project and educate them on some of the water related policies, like the Clean Water Act or the Safe Drinking Water Act, and what the Safe Drinking Water Act means and how that can be used to empower themselves. And what what does the MCL means, maximum contaminant levels, like within the heavy metals, and what those means, what's safe, safe, and what's not. And so far as like I got a lot of positive feedback, and there's a couple of community members that reach out to me that want something like that that's closer to them. And doing this project also helps reduce stress on regular water imports, of where there are public water where people can come and get water or haul water. It's like from 500 gallons to 1,000 gallons, some of them for livestock, some of them for human consumption. And during the summer, some of those regulated water import across Navajo Nation, it gets so stressed that they turn those off. And when that happens, there are some wells, some springs that are elevated in heavy metals. The most common one is arsenic. There's arsenic and uranium that are elevated, and when they go to those water sources, it is a public health issue when that happens. Like when they drink from elevated level of arsenic and heavy metals, and sometimes it's supposed to be more high. So when the regulated water points are turned off, then a lot of the community members go to those sources. So I figured by doing this kind of project, which help reduce that and reduce that the amount of time that those regulated water points are turned off, and utilize some of those springs that I worked on. And so far, it's working, and I'm happy, and got a lot of happy elders and community members.
So that was the Honor Water Initiative. Did you also just describe the CB? Could you talk a little bit more about that and how you see that developing?
Oh yeah, Simbi. I started with some friends of mine from Colorado, and how that started was the first project I did with Honor Water was a spring inside the Montevallo Tribal Park called Pinion Spring, and I had some of the local folks with inside the tribal park work with me on that, and the tribal employees told me that wasn't going to work, and I was wasting my time, and I proved them wrong, and it worked, and I was really happy. I was like, "Hey, yeah," and it's like it's working. It's in your face. Like, "Hey, yeah, don't doubt me no more." Anyway, I showed the community members that what is possible and show them that it can be done. And I got a lot of people behind me, and I got a lot of support now. And then by that, the folks from Colorado saw that, and they're like, if he can do that, and he saw some of the needs inside the tribal park as well, like a lot of the elders. And one person had some health issue, and they had to go and move out of the tribal park because that was where he was raised. That's where his grandparents used to live, or his grandparents, his parents, and all. So since he had like some health issues, they told him he had to leave. He needed to be somewhere that have electricity and running water. So when that particular person passed away, is like my friend from Colorado. Her name's Pam, and and we discussed how we can help address that, the need to have electricity, the need to have composting and showers to maintain their hygiene, and improving roofs, maybe installing some room to put in the showers and the composting as well. And that's how Tidbeat started. And so far, there's like about two of them done so far. And for the stuff that's happening in Tidbeat, though, that's what do you call it? Crowdsourcing from crowdfunding. A lot of that's being done through crowdfunding, and then the stuff that I'm doing with Honor Water, that's like through small grants. So um, I'm happy, and hopefully that some of the youth are seeing some of that work that's being done, and seeing that how they can empower their community through education, and coming back and improve the quality of life for their community.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I wonder if you've already talked a little bit about some of the sustainability challenges that are facing the Southwest. Could you talk a little bit more about the sustainability challenges that you see facing the Southwest?
The big one that I see has to do with water, and it's an ongoing issue. And looking at the safe drinking water, right, and where the regulated watering or the public water are, it's a population density issue, meaning that where the water lines are, where the water infrastructures are, that's where the populations are, and they have the revenue and the funding or the money to pay for these services. But in real isolated areas, like there are areas where it's so rocky or sandstone that it's not profitable to extend a lot of those water lines because it'll cost millions and millions of dollars to make a hole through these sandstones, and that's not just going to happen. Even though my tribal government, the regulatory agency, and the federal agency is like and they talk about there are water lines being extended, but only to a certain point, only to where there are populations. Therefore, there is a how we say that there is a limitation of the Safe Drinking Water Act and how far these water lines can be extended and to where and to where. And I see that as a problem. And I thought a lot about this. And I think the solution to that problem is working with grassroots organizations, and they can take up the area or the need of these access watering point or make water potable. They can pick up the slack and bridge the gap and narrow the gap so people can have these potable water. And in some cases that's already happening. I'm working on that myself, and there's Dig Deep that's working on that as well. There's another one. I forgot what the name of that one was, but there are a couple of nonprofit organizations that are working on that as well. But um, the more the merrier, and the more nonprofit organizations get involved, I think it can be solved.
So I wanted to ask you about some of your other work. How do we merge health, environmental, and cultural aspects of sustainability?
Um, that um, environmental health and culture, that has to be like a cultural sensitivity. Um, Personally, the way I've done it so far is that in my tribe, there are certain clans that are responsible for certain things, and one of the clans that I'm working with is the Water clan. They have ties to water, they have prayers, they have stuff related to water. And since they have ties to water and stuff related to water, I work with them, and I do it through cultural practice and cultural knowledge, and working with tribal elders that know that knowledge to help me do these work or to do this work, and which help address the needs, the water needs, the water quality issue, and also addressing the need for health as well as like working with Sebbi, having these folks that have health issues stay closer to home where they have ties to home and where they can be comfortable, um, and not being taken off where they grew up or taken away from the land that they knew. And I think that's a way to do it. Like culture will be the bottom line, so to speak. Cultural and cultural sensitivity and awareness of cultures and the people that you work with as well as and native knowledge holders.
Yeah, well, I'm curious about another portion of your research focused on uranium mining. How is uranium mining impacting tribal lands and communities in the Southwest?
Uranium mining is a huge issue. Um, and as I told you, my grandfather was a former uranium miner. He passed from cancer, and I have numerous relatives that passed from cancer because of the uranium mining. And a year ago, I buried my uncle. He was a former uranium miner. He passed from cancer as well. And through some studies with colleagues and friends from University of Mexico, they're seeing that it's becoming generational, meaning that people that live in areas that have legacy mining, uranium mining, in our conversation, they're seeing that even babies are being impacted because the babies are still breastfeeding, or newborn babies. They're not been exposed to any uranium mining, but the parents or the mother has been, and they're seeing uranium in their urine, and 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 we don't know the cognitive impact. We don't know that. There's a lot more research that needs to happen to understand if it's a cognitive issue as well, because lead, arsenic, and um, mercury, they show cognitive um, issue, like when kids are exposed, like if they have a hard time learning and their test scores are low. So we don't know if uranium does that. So there, yeah, it's an ongoing issue as well. Not only legacy or generational, but people that live in those areas are continue to be exposed, and there are community members that are continuing to get cancer, and they don't understand why. One of the areas that I worked in, a place called Sanders, I hear about individuals that live a healthy lifestyle. They don't smoke, they don't drink, they exercise, they eat healthy, and they're described as outgoing person, and they'll come down with cancer and they'll pass away, and they don't understand why. But we come to find out that the public water, was contaminated and elevated in uranium for many years. We discovered this back in 2015, and my colleague, his name is Chris Shui, colleague friend, he worked with the Southwest Research Information Center. He found out that um, from 2000 on, that the public water there was elevated in uranium, and the undersea drinking water, right? They supposed to, the utility service that have the public water use, or should inform the public or the community that is utilizing that public water about the elevated level in uranium, but that didn't happen. And Arizona Department of Environmental Quality didn't step in, but through the work that we've done, it's like a lot of that has changed. So even in areas that don't have uranium mining, but they do have a source of contamination, it shows that it can still happen, and it's still an ongoing issue. And not only for my tribe, but other tribes that have past uranium minings. Like I know the public tribes in New Mexico have the same issue, like all the way like from Colorado, Wyoming, like Wind River Reservation, the Lakota Nation, Sioux Nation. Yeah, it's just like um, seems like the states, the western states, just west of the Rocky Mountains, seems like a lot of the tribes are being impacted from these legacy minings.
So you mentioned informing the public and the Arizona Department of Environmental Quality. Um, how should we address uranium contamination? What are some strategies to address the contamination?
Excuse me, sorry, say it again.
How should we address uranium contamination?
Um, I would say um, educating ourselves and reading more about it. And there are a couple of documentary films that talks about uranium exposure, uranium mining, and becoming aware of it. And I do give talks to people and community members, and I did a couple talk to a couple universities. So um, they can ask me to do a presentation on uranium mining, or my colleagues, like from University of New Mexico or from University of Arizona. I'm pretty sure they'll be willing to help and educate the public about uranium exposure.
Yeah. Well, so you've also done work in the Four Corners. Can you tell us about the work you're doing in the Four Corners related to oil and gas fields?
Um, yes, uh, that's an area that um, there's not a lot of research that has been done with oil and gas fields in the Fort Cornell in tribal communities, and and I got interested in that particular area because of um, there's some family members that I know that live in some of these communities, so they were telling me about some of the respiratory issues that they're seeing and respiratory issues like with kids. They've seen a lot more cases of respiratory issue in elementary students that they shouldn't have these respiratory issues, but a lot of that's coming from being exposed to the gases in those oil and gas field. So I figured I go and help and try to address that as well. And I spent my time in at Princeton University as a research fellow, so I was able to do some studies um, at Princeton related to that. We came up and we gathered data and got some data in the oil and gas fields and informed the community members about some of these elevated gases that are out there. And the data that we share with the community in New Mexico, is particularly council, they use that to make changes when it comes to oil and gas field and oil and gas facilities, and move some of those facilities further away from school as well, so the kids won't be exposed to those gases. So it's like changes coming, but there's still more study that needs to be made to understand the health impact from these gases. And my colleague, his name is Dr. Jonathan Credo, him and I are putting a proposal together to address that as well. So this is like a research that is much needed for my tribe to understand the health impact from these oil and gas fields as well, and ways to help my tribal regulatory agency to get some much needed equipment to address these problems as well.
So, what is the future of this work and your research?
Right now, to be honest with you, it's going to be challenging, very challenging. Under the Trump administration, he cut a lot of funding. We cut a lot of research funding. He cut a lot of environmental justice grants as well. And and trying to get some research grant to address some of these problems has been an issue. But with a lot of deregulation that Trump mentioned, it's going to put a lot of work for people that are doing this type of work as well. So I do see a lot of research that needs to happen now because of what's happening to environmental health and to the environment and the exposure that's happening as well. So it's like it's it's gonna be an uphill battle.
Well, Tommy, thank you so much for taking the time to share your research and your insights. And I hope we can continue the conversation down the road.
Yeah, yep. And thank you for having me.